have PhD friends in top institutions right now. Harvard, Johns Hopkins, Stanford, Princeton, all over the country. And I am tapping them. I'm going, hey, what's going on? What are you doing with this budget cut? Like, what is your department doing? And I'm getting the feedback, so I'm gonna share.
The Trump administration is about to decimate the research infrastructure in this country and the budgets of hundreds of R1 universities.
As someone that is planning on going back to grad school in the biomedical sciences, this is literally the worst application cycle I've ever lived through, and I have my undergrad degree and my master's degree, so you can imagine I've seen a lot.
Major universities across America are facing severe budget constraints following significant federal funding cuts by the Trump administration. Institutions like Stanford, MIT, and UC San Diego have already begun reducing or entirely freezing PhD admissions, leaving hundreds of potential students and early career researchers uncertain about their academic future. Since taking office, the administration has enacted restrictions targeting the National Institutes of Health and other federal funding bodies, impacting hundreds of ongoing research projects.
So a lot of it is wait and see. So they are not taking a lot of action. And then there are departments who are drastically cutting how many people that they're taking, especially if you're in one of those targeted areas like the biomedical sciences or public health or things like that. They're probably taking half the people that they took last year, which is insane and a huge problem if you are applying this cycle, and it sucks. And so you can't control that. But what you can control is thinking strategically about what you can do. So if you got rejected, you could have just been like a normal rejection, but if you think you're rejected because, hey, they had 10 spots and now they're only taking 5, like, let's follow up. So let's reach out to the people. Let's say, hey, maybe I can start in the spring. Are there fellowships I can apply for that if I get, that way I can get my spot? What can we do to make this work if they want you? If they want to have more people in the program, but they're just concerned about the funding, that is something that you can definitely reach out and negotiate.
I was even in college during the last Trump presidency, right? Like, it was never this bad. Basically, all the funding is uncertain, and any funds from the NIH for any research projects are up in the air, very uncertain. And I'm only making this video to speak about this now because it has directly affected me and my admissions, going through the admissions cycle right now for different programs, and I'm being told we unfortunately can't guarantee you anything because we don't know if we're gonna have money. I'm a first-generation college student. My parents didn't go to college, and I'm just like pissed because I've worked so hard to get to the point where I can get an interview back for a PhD application, but now, because of the federal government thinking that biomedical research is corrupt and taking too much resources and money from taxpayers, the project I was gonna work on that didn't have funding was literally for cancer, for CAR T-cell therapy, something related to that. So I'm very thankful right now that I do actually have an opportunity. I'm like gonna be fine, but one of my opportunities got ruined because of this administration.
Hey guys, so I currently work in academic research in an institution for specifically cancer research. We just received notice that the National Institute of Health is cutting funding for overhead costs by an enormous amount. So overhead costs include facilities, it includes the training of staff, it includes the hiring of staff, having people who know how to accurately run projects and research on site. It's important. These costs are important because it's what facilitates the actual life cycle of a study. And these studies are crucial for our community. This is how we gather information on medicine, data on our community, a whole bunch of things. And now this imaginary committee that has been created, this administration, is affecting public health research. So it matters. Everything matters. Like, and don't leave a comment on here if you don't work in research.
With the declaration of a limitation of 15% of indirect cost funding on NIH grants. Let me explain. The National Institutes of Health is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, funder of medical research in the entire world. People apply for very competitive grants, and they're funded a lot of research, a lot of medical research, vaccine research, research on illnesses, research on health equity, research on medical treatments. All of it is funded by the National Institutes of Health. Now, these grants come with two types of funding. One type of funding is direct funding. That is paying for your supplies, paying for your people. Some professors pay themselves some salary out of that, paying for the stuff that you need to run a study. And then there's indirect costs. So that's stuff like wear and tear on the university, electricity, HVAC, as well as indirect costs like paying departmental staff, HR, IT, and all of those kinds of things. Now, whether or not you like it, indirect funding is a giant part of a lot of studies. It could be 30, 50, I've seen even upwards of 65%. So that means that 65% of the grant is funding these larger, kind of more nebulous, harder to nail down type costs. Now, somebody who my guess is not an academic looked at this and decided that because private foundations and organizations like the Gates Foundation and others fund around 10 to 15% of indirect costs, that the NIH should only fund 15% of indirect costs. With the cuts going into effect immediately, that means money that was already budgeted for within university budgets for the year has disappeared. It's dried up, so they're either going to have to find other ways to find that money, or they're going to be massive, massive, massive losses. This has the potential to do a great amount of damage very quickly to science research in our country. Once again, whether or not you like it, this hacksaw approach to dealing with our financial issues is not going to help us in the long run.
This uncertain funding scenario has forced universities to scale back their graduate admissions and hiring processes. Stanford, for example, recently announced a freeze on staff recruitment, explicitly mentioning concerns around congressional proposals that could further tax university endowments. Many institutions now worry their financial resources will not sustain ongoing research projects or support the necessary student workforce. Graduate researchers, who represent the future of scientific innovation, are directly impacted by these budgetary constraints. Funding for PhD candidates usually comes from federal research grants awarded to faculty members or through training and development programs. However, these pathways are drying up due to tightened budgets, leaving young researchers vulnerable. Experts fear many talented minds will now seek career paths outside academia, weakening the country's scientific community. Stay tuned for more insights and expert analysis, only on Newscazt.